So this tutorial looks at the challenges and opportunities within changing population in regard to gender equality and human trafficking and the policies around those areas. The first thing I want to say is that sort of gender is a really important theme that runs through the IB course. So it's very important in relation to power and perspectives. I think we can pick up on this through both the standard level core and the higher level core. It's one of those synoptic themes which will definitely have relevance through paper 3. So students should develop critical insight into these perspectives. The other thing I'd like to say is that when we think about policy here and we think about governance, we should be considering that at a range of scales. So a really good way to develop a response around gender equality and human trafficking is considering governments right from the global scale to the local, so the NGO scale, or even at the organizational level, such as gender equality in terms of sports governance. So the first thing I'd say is that, the gender issue is certainly in the spotlight. It's one of these really contemporary, current themes. We see it in the news time and time again, so it's a good idea to be up to date, to be considering relevant stories that are pushing this issue. And we're going to look at this from a global governance through to a national, down into the local government policy. At the global scale, we really do need to be thinking about SDGs and the United Nations role. So goal number 5, gender equality. So the SDGs places this emphasis on all stakeholders to address gender equality. So the SDGs require governments, businesses, and individuals to actively work to reduce discrimination, to look after their doorstep first. So a really good thing here as well is for you, and I've set this up in my site, is that you develop examples which are of interest to you. And there are an enormous number of issues which are there, which are an opportunity for you to look at. So sexual harassment, female genital mutilation, gender educational gaps, gender pay gaps, female positions of leadership. So all these ideas could be developed, and they're currently in the news. If we think about kind of the US ladies football team, salary equality there, the hashtag #MeToo campaign. These are just current in the news stories which you might want to explore. And also looking at the problems which have been emerging in both Pakistan and India in terms of the perception of women, in terms of that culture of patriarchy and some of the abuses that have taken place against women, and the campaigns within the public domain in India and Pakistan to get justice for girls and for women who have been oppressed and abused. Really interesting issues. Now, gender also kind of crosses over in terms of human trafficking as well. But we should remember that human trafficking takes place for all groups in society, men, women, and children. It's thought that today there are around 21 million people worldwide that have been trafficked. The fact that they have all in common is their vulnerability. We must put the emphasis back on women at this point in time. So women are a particular vulnerable group. They're open to abuses and frequently trafficked into modern day slavery and forced prostitution. So these are really difficult subjects. Good to have examples, researched examples that you have a real interest in. So typically we'd think you might develop a range of examples, a range of places, but keep in mind here the concept of scale. So the UN, perhaps to the European Commission, perhaps something back into a national example, for example, the UK or your home country. Think about the role of NGOs and their work on lobbying and activism. And bear in mind, this is a real synthesis opportunity to draw on different examples from the course. If you're taking higher level geography, to think about the role of gender across many of the areas of global interactions.